What's going on, advocates? Welcome back to another edition of the Black Mental Health Podcast. I'm your host, Reg. Joined today with me is some special guests. I love when people and brothers and individuals are doing the work in the community, and making sure we bring light to this serious topic of mental health. You both can introduce yourselves. I don't introduce anybody because y'all worked hard out here. Y'all get your credentials and all these different things. Tell the people who you are, what you do, and what they can gain from this conversation today.
Well, my name is Anthony Duncan, and I am one of the co-founders of Dead to Silence. And I just want people to understand the true meaning of mental health as far as like the importance and spread awareness when it comes to where you're at in life and getting to a place where you're able to just develop like self-love and start healing, whether that's through therapy, whether it's through meditation, just through, completely understanding where you're at in life.
Awesome. Got to clap it up for my co-founder. I am also a co-founder. My name is Osadeba Omokaro. Some people know me as different names within that spectrum, but we will just say that name for now. Originally from Houston, Texas, but living in DMV. Also want others to understand what mental health is, continue to spread education on mental health in all capacities, and also awareness on mental health. Remove stigmas from mental health, and then also make it normal for people to utilize the different resources we have within the mental health space and create platforms for those that have unspoken issues. Any different or any thought that comes to your mind, if it comes, we want to make sure that we provide you the platform and give you the resource that you need. So building the Kim folks and the folks of the Dead to Silence community, and that's what we're looking to do.
I thank you for that, both of you. And I'll direct my question at who I wanted to answer, so that way we don't have any confusion on that. And so Anthony, sure, how did you all meet and come together on this project? Well, it ain't even a project, this mission.
Yeah, so I actually been knowing Osa for pretty much majority of my life. I think we met in Top Teams of America in Houston. Not sure, or a community organization, and we pretty much did like different advocacy programs all through middle school and high school. And so we met there. And my younger sister is who both of we know, and she committed suicide now about 10 years ago. And it was something for me that I didn't really understand my emotions and my feelings. And at that moment, I was a very quiet kid. So I looked at, people looked at me as like, oh, he's quiet, so he's strong, so he can like literally take on anything. For me, I didn't know I had the opportunity to even express my emotions because people were leaning on me. And so it wasn't until about 2018 when I started to like really like dive into my emotions. I went through a really tough place. I left my job. I was trying to figure out what I want to do next in life. And so I realized that in order for me to move forward, I have to kind of really combat my demons, the things that were like holding me back. And so I went to a friend of mine's one act play, and it was about teen suicide. And he just asked a question. He was like, so what can we do to help combat teen suicide or suicidal thoughts? And so I was like, just speak up, speak up. So I just took the mic and I started speaking about my sister and how it made me feel, and how we should be able to, reach other people that we love, And so once I started speaking about the teen suicide and my sister, I just felt like people was able to see me for who I was, and not for the fixture that I put up. And so from there, I just keep talking about it. And then Osa, he was in New York. And so we just started to talk more about it. He shared his story with me. And at that moment, we wanted to spread awareness, because at the time, mental health wasn't talked about, especially in the Black community. It was very much still, it was taboo. It's still now. It's a little bit better now. But we realized that if you're able to talk about what's on your mind and learning that vulnerability is more of a strength, you're able to take ownership over your life and your power. So if you let go of the things that are holding back, like negative, like depression, anxiety, teen suicide, it could be something as far as like perfectionism, whatever it is that's holding you back, you're able to let that go, bring in self-love and like positivity. And you're able to just take back the ownership and take back over your life. So you can either get to a place where you can start meditating, and even get to a place where therapy is even an option. So you can start working on yourself be a better, better person. So that's where Dead to Silence came about. It's like we need to dead the silence on those things that are holding us back in life. So that's where it started. It just kind of just took life of its own. It started into like, okay, so we have t-shirts. So we were gonna, promote this t-shirts. And I had like, okay, friends, hey, we want to pretty much come together to help promote the brand. And so when that happened, I just saw them, just kind of unfold their own stories as far as like what they went into the silence about, like as far as like adversity, sexuality, sexual abuse, being perfect, their own mental health journey. And so it just kind of took form. It was like, oh wow, we need to do more. So we ended up, having like different fireside chats outside. Pre-COVID, then we had an event in Houston, where we brought together like different therapists and just brought the community together. And so it just continued to grow into something. It was like, okay, and also with the work, we do workshops for college students. So it just kind of just became something that like was for the community. We want to create space for unspoken mental health issues in the community and bring resources to people. So know like, hey, this is something that you're not alone. If you're ever dealing with something, like here is a resource for you. Here is a space, there's a topic that, we're pretty much the Dead the Silence is the organization where, if you're afraid to talk about it and it's on your mind, we're going to bring it out of you. We're going to bring the topic to light. So you're able to be like, okay, yeah, I was thinking that, but I didn't know how to say it, so it's pretty much it's more of like it is therapy. And it's also a way of getting things off your chest, be like, oh, wow, I'm definitely not alone, especially being Black in America, being a human being, being a woman, being a man. You're able just to realize like, wow, I left with something else. Like I was able to let go of this and I'm able to refuel myself with something good. So that's pretty much how this mission got started.
No, and I appreciate that. And also I'm gonna come your way next. And you can add anything that Anthony may have left out, but I'm sure you probably both have done this often enough where y'all share your brain at this point. But I want to go back because Anthony mentioned about the impetus being losing a sibling and how it inspired. Going through Osa's bio and something, I see that you both share that traumatic experience of losing a sibling. Can you talk more into that part, Osa, about like how you managed through that and what you would tell another person that is trying to grieve through that type of loss?
100%. Well, first I would like to add to the context of the losing a sibling. I lost a sibling at the age of 8 months, 8-year-old brother. And then when we went through everything that we went through after I met Anthony, when he lost his sister, to me, I looked at her like a little sister. If anybody has a very close friend and they have a little sibling, you look at them like, oh, that's the little sibling. But when she committed suicide, we both felt that. And then we shared that. And it wasn't until we graduated from college in about 2015 was the first time we had a conversation with each other about that. I was living in Indiana at the time, and I think Anthony was in Mississippi. So we were both in like some country places and we were nowhere near each other, but that was the first time we were able to express like our thoughts of how as men, how we felt and how we handled it. And I would say through the loss of both of them, it was two different experiences. And if it's okay with you, Reggie, how would it be okay if I shared like what my experience was with both of those losses?
Of course, this is your show.
Oh, for sure. Well, when I lost my brother in middle school, actually, I like broke down in the hallway. I was a very aggressive child. I fought all the time. And one time my teacher let me out to the hallway to walk around. And mind you, I lost my brother at 8 months, but I felt his presence throughout my life. Just broke down, started crying in the hallway for about like 30 minutes. Crazy that nobody else walked into the hallway to see me crying. But then I got back up and went into my class and then just had that like one flash episode. Then fast forward to about 2013 after actually 2012 when Ashley committed suicide. I locked myself away in my room in college for about 3 days and didn't go out, didn't use the restroom, didn't eat, and then came out of my dorm room 3 days later, missing class, didn't connect with nobody, and nobody even knew the difference. So I think that sometimes when you go through those experiences, and I would say as a Black man, because I am one, but this can happen to anybody, oftentimes people might not be there. people might not see it, and they might see the after effect or their memory of you and think that everything's perfectly fine. When at the end of the day and during the day, you are not fine at all. And you are processing these situations, and you really don't have, if you don't know, you don't have any resource. So for me, that was the case for a while until like I started to communicate a little bit more. And once I broke free of everything that I already knew, like once I left my city, once I was doing something as away from my parents, once I left everything that I knew, I started to like soul search to try to figure out, okay, so what's all me? And then I had my conversation with my brother Anthony. And then I was like, you know, I need to do something more. I believe in health. I want to be a strong person for the family that I want. I don't want these situations to ever take me out of the game, because a lot of us think that suicide and these harmful thoughts it just can't happen to us sometimes, but it's a slippery slope. It happened to me. It happened to a lot of people that I know. And you might not ultimately commit suicide, but you can do a lot of things to self-sabotage. You could self-sabotage your relationships. You could self-sabotage your opportunities. You could self-sabotage any type of social setting, and even your own dreams and even your self-worth. So for me, it was getting a counselor. For me, it was communicating boundaries to family, friends, and loved ones. For me, it was making sure that I connected and was very present with how I was feeling in the moment. And when I'm not feeling, wait for that feeling to manifest, because I often say to people, I am a man who is at like elementary level emotional intelligence with my own emotions. I feel like oftentimes there's people out there that get to experience their emotions, get to cry from like childhood, get to throw tantrums, get to be happiest to their most degree without having to worry about whether a police officer is going to be looking out for them, a teacher is going to be looking out for them, a parent or an aunt or a sibling or family member might be pressing down on them. I didn't have that luxury. So they're at like a college level with their emotions. They know when they're sad. They know how to identify it. They know when they're angry. They know how to identify it. They know when they're happy. They know how to identify it. But me, I could be angry and still have a smile on my face. Next thing you know, I'm stealing off on somebody. Next thing you know what I'm saying? Like it just can come out like that. And those are manic episodes. I learned the language through going through counseling. So I would say went through my emotions, went through my situations, didn't know how to process them, got into counseling and communicating and setting boundaries. And that was my resource. So that would be my experience I would share.
Anthony, I wanted to go back to you, and you can add on to anything that Osas expressed there. And I wanted to ask, because you said Dead to Silence, or both of you have said it's not just a t-shirt, is not just that. So if you can project out into 5 years, and I'll hold on one second, I will pull it up so that way people can kind of see the website and everything that you guys have going on, because it is a movement and a mission that I feel like people need to be a part of, and tap in, because that's a lot of the times these things in grassroots organizations, they exist and then people don't support, or they don't come out and then they go away after a while. And so I tried my best to make sure I highlight different organizations that's doing the work, so that way it's like, one, I feel not alone in with my end of the way that I want to do, and two, people can continue to support. And so if you can project out, Anthony, 5-10 years from now, future wise, what would Dead to Silence look like?
Dead to Silence will look like, when it comes to continuing to create workshops, mental health workshops for college students and high school students all over the United States. Also continuing to create an advocacy when it comes to our documentary, and doing more documentaries in the future when it pertains to people of color and sharing their stories, and also just doing more events with other organizations in the future as well when it comes to promoting this safe space for people of color when it comes to being in the wellness and mental health field as well. And I feel like we don't have that safe space. We have there's certain things that I look at like Culture Con, which is a place for Black creatives to come and share like their wealth and share their experiences when it comes to being creative. So we want to continue to create that space for people of color where we can come together and really, share that safe space when it comes to, talking about therapy, getting introduced to new therapists and different ways of wellness, like meditation, like yoga, creating those safe spaces like that. So that's what I see Desert Science continue to grow into, like this very much this creative like mogul brand.
Osa, back your way. Now again, doing the homework research or whatever the case may be. I see that you come from Nigerian parents, right? And you talk highly of the parents, right? But I'm talking about culture because I'm a first generation American, and I know about like in the Caribbean, mental health is still a new concept. Talk about the Nigerian experience of mental health, not just from your personal experience, but like as a culture and how adapting that new language around mental health.
Well, as a culture, I love the fact that you're a Caribbean man. So, may I ask where you're from?
Antigua and Barbuda.
Oh, I'm definitely hitting you up when I'm taking trips because I need the Rex.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful place for your mental health. I'll say that right now. But
and I got Africa on my sleeve, like my heart, my home, my heritage.
Okay. Well, hey man, if you find your way in Nigeria, holla at me. I'll help you out. I'm going in October, but to talk about Africa as a diaspora as a whole and the African approach to mental health, at least from what I understand. So one thing I would say is it depends on where you are. It really does depend on where you are, and it depends on exposure for everybody in every possible form of life. If you live in the village or the equivalent of the village to America would be the hood or the country. It's a mix between the hood and the country. That's what the village is. So the village, it'll be very hard for you to get a mental health conversation going with your parents and thinking everything's going to be cool. Because one, if you know about the Black community or the African community, there's a lot of secrecy within the home. And if you're talking about mental health and trying to expand that out to an advocate or a professional, if it isn't your pastor or your rabbi or whatever your religious leader might be, or the elder in your family, it ain't going nowhere. And that elder of your family could just be your mother or your father. And if you were to talk about mental health, they hear mental health, sometimes they hear mental illness. If you say, I wanna meditate, they're like, oh, you're praying to witches and wizards. Slap. Oh, hey, I want to work on my breath work. Oh, so you're angry at me. These are the translations that bounce back when you're talking about things that are ultimately for the good of you and them, so that you can maintain your peace. But it's not necessarily a culture that's about maintaining peace in a Western setting. And the reason why I say that is because in the African culture, there's a lot of forms of therapy that isn't necessarily deemed therapy. So eating dinner with a family can be therapeutic. Everybody sitting down, everybody eating, communicating. Oh, there's an issue. You might nudge your cousin who brings it up to the mom because that's their favorite person, and the mom brings it up at the table in front of dad, and then dad now has to address the issue that triggered you amongst the family. Or something can happen with your sibling. Now that's community therapy. But if it falls outside of that spectrum, oh, it's met with aggression. Any form of change is met with aggression or isolation, where people just start messing with you. Like, you know what? That child over there is troubled. That guy, that one over there is sick in the head. These types of things just start to bubble But I would say also on the flip, since I moved to the DMV, I've met more people from my tribe that are actually in the mental health field.
Mm.
Fathers that are clinical counselors. I've met family members that are mental health identified registered nurses, and it threw me because in Texas that doesn't exist, at least from my view. And then in Nigeria, I'm Edo from Benin City, so everybody in my family is Edo. All it dates all the way back to the 5th century. Everybody has an O in their name. But when I'm out there, mental health, nobody has a counselor. You just have a pastor, and that's it. You don't always have an advocate in your home, and there's no outlet for that mental health. So I would say, for me, in the African diaspora, mental health isn't something that's even brought up as anything positive. It's usually always negative, and it's usually always associated with something spiritual. So I'm just letting you know from my view. I don't know if you share that in the Caribbean culture, but I'm pretty sure you done heard that person's ill, that person's sick, that's a wicked person, they've been cursed, or something like that. When they're just going through different episodes that we've already identified, and if we use a phone or a resource, we can possibly give that person help.
Nah, I appreciate that and sharing that. Anthony, I'm coming back your way now. You shared something and make sure y'all follow Dead to Silence on social media. You shared something I wanted you to expound on if you had anything to add.
Happy May Mental Health Awareness Month. So I just have a message for everybody, for my overthinkers, my mental people that live in our head. I think it's time for us to, live out in the present world with everybody else. I think the best way to do that is by movement, by going to the gym, working out, yoga, meditating, working, walking, and just doing things that kind of exercise our brains, exercise those thoughts, so we're able to really just flow through our day. And so I think we're in this space now where we can glow and flow, So that's the message. Glow and flow, and y'all have a great day.
Talk to me about that, Anthony. You said flow and go. For all the overthinkers out there, let's choose a different reality for ourselves, unlearn behavior and relearn new ones. In the moments of overthinking and being too mental, get up and do something active. It can help you relax and flow through your day, and also helps decipher which thoughts, which are truly you or your fears. So the motto is to glow and flow. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, that's for that week. I'm in school right now, so I'm studying to be a nutritionist. And there's moments where I just overthink myself. I also have a business that I've started, so I'm feel very safe in my brain, and so I just overthink situations, and it gets to a point where I can find myself into a depression, where I found myself last year when I was in my program, and I just was very depressed. I just wasn't talking to anybody. I was putting on this face, smiling, but I would go back home and I would just be in my thoughts. And so what really helped me was working out. I started working out every day, and I realized that, once I was working out, it was a sense of release, because I was able to work on, they also talked about as far as like breathing. I was able to like breathe through the workouts, breathe in, exhaling and inhaling. And so I've learned like, oh, wow. So I was able to really, it's not really my thoughts, it's my fears. So if I let my fears go by movement, I'm able to bring in new ideology, new thoughts and stuff. So I realized that meditation works. I do that every morning, working out, like just moving your body. You just help to exercise negative thoughts, negative feelings outside. Because sometimes it's just our fears. Sometimes it's, it's our ego taking over our brain, and it's not really our true self. So what we need to do is just get out of our house, go for a walk, get some vitamin D from the sun, do some yoga, do something that's just going to help you just shake it off, But I had to say, like, as a child, shake the devil off. Pretty much just shake it off a little bit, so you're able just to bring in God into your spirit, you just bring happiness and joy. So that's what that was a message. I was like, you know what? I think people need to hear this. I feel like I talked to a lot of friends of mine that are overthinkers, that just in their brain, like, I'm not good enough to do this. Like, I'm the only Black person here. I'm not supposed to be here. Like, I can never start our own business. I don't have no education in this. I don't have this. But if God calls you to do it, then you're supposed to be there. You know, like don't put limitations on what's is in front of you. So it was like in that moment, I was like, once I started dancing or just like working out, I felt 10 times better. I was more confident in myself. I was like, let me put this message out there because we need to start flowing and glowing out there, because like we don't need to be in our brains too much. Like we need to continue to be in the present world and enjoy the moments, because life is short, as COVID has taught us. Like life is short, and just embrace every day that you have, every moment, you know. So that was that message. So I'm definitely learning to glow and flow more throughout my day.
Nah, I got you. Osa, I see you look like you wanted to add to that.
I'm just happy my boy got a highlight, honestly, because at
Well,
the end of the
we got one for you too. Wait, load it up. So let's go your way and add to it.
Thought of the day is rest. You know you can't do anything unless you charged up, and you can't charge up unless you rest. Think about it. Make sure you do it.
Simple message, right? But even before we got on, hold on, let me pause this. Even before we got on, I told y'all like this was the only thing that I was doing for the day, and I get excited because this is a part of my self-care, right? But even things that you love to do can turn into work and become a burden. So I'm like, after this is what I'm doing. I'm done for the day to get my rest. So talk to me, also explain what you expound on what you meant by resting and everything like that.
Hey man, I'll say this right now. Before you do anything, you gotta wake up, but you can't wake up until you rest. So even when you in the womb, you resting, you charging up, so that when you come out the womb, wow, they hit you on the butt, you start crying. That's the energy. And then once you done crying and you done eating and you done living, you going back to rest. But now when we become adults, and now when we go through the real world, we like, man, call me Mr. 25/8. There's a song in the H that says, call me Mr. 25/8. 25 hours, 8 days straight. Meaning I'm just gonna work way longer than the world has to offer. But the thing about it is, if you don't rest, you can't do that work. If you don't take breaks mentally, you can't survive. And like my boy Anthony said, COVID has taught us that you can get fatigued and that you can meet your end, and it can happen any different way. So it's good to go ahead and find yourself some time to recharge. I'm gonna give you a couple examples. I'm about to go to this sensory deprivation thing that my lady found today. So after I get off of here, I'm gonna go do some sensory deprivation for about an hour. I never did it before, but it's gonna kill off all sound, all sight, all noise, and it's just gonna put me in a little pod where I'm floating in like salt water, so that I can recharge. I do yoga every morning, just like my man Anthony. We tag each other on Instagram to make sure that we're working out. And then I hit up my folks, and then sometimes I just put my phone to the side. I don't pick it up. I sit back in my bed, I lay down, I might read a book, I might turn on Netflix and go mindless for a little bit, and I might not talk to anybody, or I might just go outside and I might just walk. And that might be a form of rest. Instead of doing the work, like you said, this can sometimes turn into work if we just do it without any joy, And sometimes that rest is stop doing stuff that you're not enjoying and start doing the stuff that you do enjoy. And sometimes that fun just gives you a different form of energy and a different form of rest. You're like, oh, I wasn't enjoying it doing it this way, but when I lean into what I really like, I get that energy. And then ultimately you get that recharge. The goal isn't necessarily to just be like procrastinate and not do nothing and then just be lazy. The goal is to recharge, rebuild. Best analogy I have, because I like analogies.
I love them too.
Everybody talks about they want to be summertime fine, right? Getting active, new year, new me. They in the gym getting active. But the funny thing about that is, your muscles are built the most in recovery when you're resting. It's not while you killing the weights. Honestly, you destroying yourself. But you destroy yourself to the point where you rest and your body rebuilds itself. If you don't get those 8 hours, if you don't get those that right nutrients, nothing's gonna get rebuilt. So you can use all the energy you want, and you think your effort is making something happen, but it's really all about being efficient. You want to have a balance in that. You want to rest and work, and keep that cycle going. But that's all I got to say on that, my man. I appreciate that.
Nah, no problem. And I'll swing it back to Anthony in that same realm with nutrition. And he's talking about being a dietitian and going to school and really talk to me about community nutrition and mental health and how they correlate with one another. Uh-oh, did we lose him?
That's a great topic because that's something that
No, we got you. Go ahead.
Okay. No, it's actually a great question because that's something that people don't really correlate with like food. They just think that they're just, taking in food for, their simple joy, like eating Popeyes or eating like candy or eating something they just don't think it has nothing to do with like their body. They things to do with their brain, their physical ability or anything. They know it's going to gain weight or lose weight, but I don't think it affects them, with, developing some certain types of like, disorders or mental health. And I realized, so I became a vegan 3 years ago and I started to, kind of be self-aware of like my body. And I saw that, once I started to like eat more fruits and vegetables and cut out like meat and fish and stuff, I saw like I was getting more energy and my mental health was getting better. Like not saying I was suicidal or anything, but I could just tell like I wasn't really dwelling on like negative thoughts as long. And so I started to do more research on it and I realized that, there are certain foods that we are deficient in that could lead us to having certain type of like depression or anxiety. If you eat more like fruit in the morning, like blueberries, pears, and apples, like they are high in antioxidants and they're really good foods to eat, to kind of curb, depression and anxiety, so we don't really talk a lot about that. So that's what I want to do when it comes to, becoming like a nutritionist, is really promote that message that, what you put in your body is as important as you say to yourself. So I want to help work with people who have anxiety and depression and work with therapists to help them, like kind of seeing like what foods you're eating, because the food that you're eating may kind of help, cure you to be more depressed or anxious. If you kind of, eat some more of this food, it can kind of help you, with your depression, your anxiety, with your bipolar, with schizophrenia, because it's all these chemical imbalances that are in your brain. And so it definitely goes hand in hand. And I think now we're becoming more aware and more like, oh wow, so if I eat this food, then I could feel this type of way. So that's the message that I wanted to, help work with therapists and mental health. So it's like a very funny thing. Like I'm in mental health, but also nutrition. So I want to put it together and really promote that message.
No, I appreciate that. To switch gears a little bit and going back to Osa, talked about earlier, somebody might be getting socked in the face with like it just teeing off of somebody because when you're going through different things, right? And one of the things I struggled early on with was anger management. And I seen from like your story, it was like you had a battle with like anger and kind of confusion and different things of that nature. Can you talk about like even emotional isolation? I love that term, honestly, not the feeling from that term, but that term. I never heard of it before, but just talk about your experience in that realm, and why was it important for you to, get a management on that those type of issues?
I will say there's a man by the name of Alexander Edwards who says, anyone who upsets you to the point of anger controls you. So with that being said, I'm no slave to nothing. I don't want to be a slave to any one thing. Only thing I'm a slave to, if I was to call myself a slave, would be to God's will. So outside of that, I don't want to let myself get angry, but to show you the experience, because I'm gonna meet people where they are. I was a dude, I grew up with the name Osadeba in the hood with all Black people in Houston. They roasted me from age 0 to now. It doesn't end. But I also was blessed with these, which are called hands. So Anthony could tell you my temperament in different times, but at the end of the day, I just never allowed anybody to be a bully. So once I felt like I was getting triggered, I would feel a way, but I usually can handle that for myself, and it would just build up. But when I would see other people, so I went to school with siblings, I went to school with friends. If you start to bully like a friend of mine or a family member of mine, I would go left. I lose it really, really quickly. I would fight every day. And it's mostly built up anger from other situations. It wouldn't even be the situation that's happening. And oftentimes somebody could hit me, I would let it go. And then I'll be the type, when everybody's chilling in the lunchroom, I'm sneaking them. And then it's like a boom, bam, action situation there. Now that sounds all cool to some people when they're young, but as you start to develop and you start to realize, you know, like at the end of the day, I'm in detention. At the end of the day, I'm getting locked up. Like police got me in the back of a cruiser for what? Because I got upset because somebody said something to me. That's not cool. You know, like at the end of the day, the end of this story don't turn out too well. So it's actually when I got to college that I actually started to really, really calm down. But I would also say I was blessed with the ability to separate where I use that energy. I did, after I got to middle school, I started to separate fighting from in school to outside of school, because we literally had a line in our school that where around the school that when you pass that line, you're outside of the school zone. So that's where I would fight in high school. My middle school and my high school right next to each other, but I would fight outside of the school zone. So then I took that mentality to just starting to fight in different places where it wasn't connected to me directly. So I started to fight other people in other parts of the city, but it didn't solve the problem. But when I got to college, I told myself, you know, I went through a case where I was dealing with a felony charge. Luckily, God blessed me and it was dismissed. But for me to go to that, to get that far, I realized, you know, this is a situation where even though this situation wasn't me, I've done enough to where people now believe that it could have been. And you got to always take responsibility for that action. No matter what, the things that you do individually to anybody around you, even if they've done something to you, you are responsible for it. You're not responsible for what the world does to you. You're responsible for what you do to the world. And you're responsible for how you deal with that situation. So I took responsibility and I told myself, you know what? I'm not going to fight anymore. Now, what that led to was a lot of built up aggression that still came out in different ways, but I wasn't fighting. Then later down the line, once I made that choice, I figured out I need to find some way to deal with this. My first object was women. That's not necessarily the way you want to do it, because then you just start to share abuse. And then the next thing from there, once I gained a little bit more maturity and started learning from them how they handled their situations, I was like, and through my conversation with my brothers, because I started to move away from women and I started to lean towards men because I didn't like the way that was going, and start listening to them, I was like, you know what? There's counseling out there. I started to try to visit my school counselor. That's the first time I ever went to a counselor for real, was in college. Didn't quite hit, and this is another story within itself. Just because you want to get yourself together mentally doesn't mean it's always going to be easy. I like to compare it to a barbershop. You know, you might go to a barbershop and a lot of guys will meet me right here, and I would say to the ladies, this is like finding yourself someone who does your hair. You might go to that first person and that first person screws you up, and you just like, hold up, you certified. This is like your job. Why do I look like this after it? That's the same thing you can experience with a counselor, a licensed counselor. That's why they have consultation. Keep going.
Great analogy.
No,
go ahead. Finish the story. But that's a great analogy.
I appreciate that. But after that, that's what ended up turning into what it is now, which is me finding my outlet with my counselor. Am I always angry? No. Do I get irritated? Yes. But I would say overall, you going to counseling is not always something about trying to heal. Going to counseling is not always about trying to fix. Sometimes it's processing. It's just processing. I go to a counselor because I want to be able to process my emotions in real time so that I'm not impacting the people around me or myself negatively at all.
Mm.
That doesn't mean that I can't get mad. That just means when I get mad, I got to know what I do so that I don't hurt anybody, but I get to process and feel my feelings.
Mm.
But that's all I got on that.
Yeah, no, and you said some key things. The gym has been one that I picked up recently, and been consistent. I used to be consistent with the gym or inconsistent with the gym because I'm like, I don't want to work out because gym is just workout, right? But then when I connected it to my emotional well-being, I'm like, yo, I need the gym. When someone is frustrating me or when I'm feeling the type of way, I need to be in a space where I can get that anger out in a proper way where it doesn't hurt nobody and be destructive at home or in my relationships in totality. But so I appreciate that for you sharing your experience and like different coping mechanism. Anthony, as we begin to close out, what's some what's a message you want to leave around like overall wellness, mental health, just a message that you want to leave the people with? Think about God forbid if anything was to ever happen where there's no dead to silence, there's no, there's nothing else in the world, but you're just on your last bed in your last days and you want to leave a message around mental wellness. And also you could think of your answer, so you got a cheat code. What message would you want to lead the people with around mental health if it was your last days?
I would say to always check in with yourself, um, to make sure if you're doing okay, if you're not doing okay, and not be afraid to reach out to a friend, to a therapist, to talk through your emotions out. Don't be afraid to be your authentic self, because you're a beautiful human being. You're here on this earth for a reason. You have a mission, you have a purpose. So don't ever forget that. And if you are having a bad day, you're having a bad day. That bad day should not determine the rest of your life. It shouldn't determine what you do. So if you're having those emotions or thoughts, you're having those emotions or thoughts, and reach out to a good friend or reach out to your therapist to talk it through, and then in that case, go outside and like get some vitamin D, to move around, work out, do something that is going to exercise those thoughts out, as well. So just understand that you are a unique human being that are here on this earth for a reason, and always keep that foundation as you, and just understand those emotions are emotions and it don't have to determine your whole rest of your life.
I thank you for that, Anthony, and I'll give Osa out and switch it because I don't like the way that question was phrased. I don't want it to be last days. I want you guys to live and prosper. I'll switch it and say the same answer. But if you were retiring and this was the last recording of whatever bit of work that you want to leave the people with, and you're going off in the island, you got your beautiful relationship, and you like, all right, I'm going to go in the corner of the world. I've said everything I want to say. What last words would you give to the people on the podcast before you go to settle off and enjoy the rest of your life, Osa? That's a way better question than the last one I asked.
First off, I give you credit because that's a black man's answer for real. We don't never want to say nothing about death at all.
Nah, that's too negative. I'm putting that energy out there.
I feel you, man. But mine is actually, it's like a couple of things, because if you're gonna give me my last words, I gotta talk. So
yes,
the first thing I'm gonna say is I appreciate you, Mr. Howard, because oftentimes me and Anthony always have this conversation about the fact that there's not a lot of men in this mental health space, like really connecting with each other and making things happen. So I'm gonna charge up all of the brothers out there. If you have a word on your heart, but you are at the elementary level like me, but you don't have anything to say, get connected on the Dead to Silence page. Look up the work that Brother Howard is doing. Connect with us, and then find ways to communicate with us to work as your avatar. You don't have to necessarily go out and speak on your own. Use Dead to Silence. We create the platforms. You give us the idea, we'll put it out there. If you want your name on it, we'll put it on it. If you don't want your name on it, we'll still get it done so that you can meet other people that can relate to you. because I promise you, somebody needs to hear what is going on in your head. I would also say, make sure you understand the id, the super ego, and the ego. The reason why you want to understand these things, because you want to understand how you present to yourself, you want to understand how you present to other people, and you want to understand the values that you have for yourself. Once you start to understand your values, it helps you operate a little better. Not everybody is gonna treat you like you want to be treated, and the way you treat people shouldn't be the way you were treated. You should treat people the way they want to be treated. You should understand how to meet people where they are. I say this because oftentimes it's hard for us to think outside of ourselves. So that's another piece. And then my last piece will be follow the Dead to Silence page at Dead to Silence, as well as www.deadtosilence.com, and activate with us. We are looking forward to working with you, no matter who you are, no matter where you are. We want to continue to build this up so that more people understand about mental health, that more people have resources to counselors, clinicians, social workers, psychiatrists, psychotherapists, Reiki healers, meditation specialists, no matter what that case may be, or even get you connected to a pastor or anything that you might want. We want to build the idea that, hey, mental health is okay. Going to a mental health professional should be cool, like going to your doctor for your annual checkup. Even when you're not sick, you still do it just to make sure everything is cool. Even when you're not sick mentally, still find some time to just check in. Hey, these are some of the thoughts that I had. Write down, journal, and share it so that you can build yourself up. But ultimately, be blessed. I love you. If you ain't heard it yet, you're hearing it now. That's for everybody.
Hey, I'll leave the final words to Anthony, because I was about to ask you, do you have any final words? But also, you did a great job, so I'll leave it to Anthony. Oh, you left it right there too? Yeah, no, that's it right there. On that note, please share something that Anthony or also shared. Like, share this clip, share a clip of this episode with someone, and let them know about Dead to Silence. And you know, like you said, follow them and subscribe to anything that they got going on. And then leave a comment on Apple with like let them know, like, hey, yo, I really love when you said this, or I love that message. Leave a comment on iTunes about what they said and what you love. And last but not least, please remember that this platform has never been about being a replacement to therapy. It's an alternative place where people share therapeutic stories. Thank you for listening.